Hello, everybody. We are back. Brit and Jacob go to the movies. We are back once again. I'm Britton.
I'm Jacob.
And today, we are going to be completing our Black History Month movie marathon for this little series we've been doing. We're going to be ending it with Pixar's fantastic movie, Soul. Oh boy. Soul is a film I was really interested in because I am a huge fan of jazz music, like our main character is in this movie. And I actually saw this at a friend of mine's house, and I really enjoyed it. Jacob, what do you think of Soul? You picked this movie. What do you think of Soul?
Oh, I think it's amazing. I mean, I was really excited for it, not only because it's Pixar and they have mostly done, they have made some all-time classics like Incredibles, Finding Nemo, Wall-E, Up, Monsters Inc. I mean, Pixar, they are amazing. And the fact that Pete Docter was directing it got me even more excited because he has directed some of Pixar's all-time classics like Monsters Inc. Phenomenal, Up, incredible, Inside Out, amazing, and Soul is another fantastic film from him.
Wait, did you say Monsters Inc.?
Yeah.
Okay, I was about to say, you better brought up Monsters Inc. You fuck. It's a great movie.
Oh, yeah. Who wouldn't bring up Monsters Inc.? Good movie. But anyway, Soul, this is a movie that takes you on a magical journey with its stunning visuals, beautiful animation. I mean, Pixar's animation has gotten to the point where it is photorealistic. I mean, like the backgrounds, the whole environment, the birds, the sky, all the vehicles. It looks real. Like it's insane on how on the level Pixar has reached. And it's also a film that beautifully explores its message about the meaning of life. And this is another win from Pixar. The voice acting all around, of course, is phenomenal as usual from Pixar. Jamie Foxx is incredible here as Joe Gardner, and overall, this is just a really, really damn good film.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Soul is a fantastic movie. I also really enjoy how it deals with the themes of the meaning of life and also how it plays with the theme of determinism and if life is a straight line or if it's something you can choose to do. That's a very unsophisticated way of saying it, but you know what? I guess we'll go with it. No, I love this movie. I mean, I've heard people compare it. I've heard people call this the antonym to Whiplash, which is also a film about a jazz musician who grapples with his obsession and love of his craft. Except I think Soul takes a more optimistic view of that situation, while Whiplash is a bit more on the cynical side.
Oh. Yeah. Whiplash went the more realistic approach, while Soul is definitely a lot more optimistic.
Yeah, but it's not a bad thing. I think Soul's a great film. We got Jamie Foxx in it, and he is fantastic.
As usual from Jamie Foxx.
Oh yes, we got an all-star cast here. We got Jamie Foxx, we got Tina Fey, we got Graham Norton. What's he doing in this?
Yeah.
We got a lot of people. We got a lot of people in this. But basically, my blurb thoughts on these movies, or on this movie, is that it is fantastic. I think I agree with Jacob almost entirely. The animation in this movie, magnificent acting. The voice acting is just on point. Damn it, I love everything about this movie.
Honestly, I mean, like, I have my minor gripes, but honestly, again, this is another win for Pixar, and it's a film that beautifully explores this message about the meaning of life and explores this message about don't let your dreams and the desire for success distract you from the beauty of life. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it's actually quite beautiful. I mean, I'm not one who gets weepy very often at movies. I don't know. I guess I'm just a cold sociopath or something like that deep down. But I did feel something in this movie. Man, I really enjoy this film though. And also, as a jazz musician, I quite enjoy it. I think it's a good movie. I mean, I think this is a very good movie. It's also very funny, too. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, yeah, it is definitely funny.
But yeah, it's another great Pixar epic, as they say. I mean, Pixar is probably the Studio Ghibli of America. And I haven't even seen that many Studio Ghibli films, except for Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke, which are both very good. I think Spirited Away is the best, but I digress. But yeah, I think Pixar is the American Studio Ghibli. I mean, they make banger after banger. I'm not lying. I mean, okay, I'll admit, maybe not all of their movies are freaking bangers, but they are really good about 90% of the time.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
And one of the things I'm really impressed by with Soul, and is no different here, I find Soul is Pixar at their best, exploring these surprisingly deep themes in a very accessible way.
Absolutely. This is one of Pixar's most mature films.
Most definitely. And, again, it's also just a great message, really.
Indeed.
Not really much else to say there. I mean, again, not every film they've made is a banger, just to, back up. But, like, again, the 90%. 90% of them is a banger.
Indeed.
Anyways, so, what do you think? You think you wanna dive into this puppy?
Yeah, let's dive into this Soul.
Yeah, let's dive into the soul of the movie.
Yeah.
Ha ha. Ha. Very funny. Okay, let's get into this. So, we're in New York City, which is kind of like the great area of jazz. Like, I mean, this and like St. Louis and New Orleans, probably. Those are like the top 3 cities you want to go to if you want to play jazz at all. We meet Joe Gardner, played by Jamie Foxx, played very well by Jamie Foxx, by the way. He is what you'd call an average Joe, no pun intended. I just noticed that. I did not intend to make a pun there, I swear. But he is an average person. He is a teacher who works at a school. He is a part-time teacher, but he really, really wants to play jazz professionally. He really loves music, and he loves jazz with a passion. Like, he is passionate about this. He's kind of like, again, back to the Whiplash comparison, he's kind of like Andrew at the beginning of Whiplash. Very passionate about jazz, really wants to do it, and it's kind of his singular focus in life.
Yes.
And, despite the fact he is kind of very into this dream, his mom is like, hey, you should try and, like, compromise a little bit. And he's like, no. But that's for later. So he spends most of his days teaching kids how to play the piano or, just teaching kids how to play music in general. And he ends up getting an offer to get a full-time teaching position. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Yes. His mom's like, yo, you should take this. He's all like, I don't know. And one of the things I really like about this movie is that Joe is one of those guys that desires for more, out of his life. And he really wants to make it and make a difference. And it's not all that, and it's not portrayed as like a bad thing, like say in Whiplash. And even in Whiplash, I don't know if it's a bad thing. But what do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, Joe Gardner is a very ambitious character. He really wants to pursue his dreams as a jazz musician. And I love the story that he goes through in this film.
Oh, I agree. I mean, and Jamie Foxx was I mean, perfect for this role. I mean, either him or Will Smith would have done too. But, Jamie Foxx was just, mwah, fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. He is incredible in this.
Yes, and we get to see his life. We get to see his relationship with his mom. And she's kind of the, stereotypical mom, She's like, oh, you got a thing, hon? And all her friends like, ooh, all that sort of thing. And he feels like his mom's dragging him down, which, it's kind of sad how relatable that is.
Oh, yeah, very relatable.
Oh, God. But luckily, my parents have been supportive of my career choice. I guess I've been fortunate in that field. But I understand the feeling of feeling dragged down by other people, He craves validation, I think is his thing throughout the movie.
Oh,
yeah. So one day he's helping a student out. Or actually there's a really touching scene where... or is this later when he's with that girl with the tuba and she's kind of like, oh, I don't know about this, and is that later or Jacob?
That's no, you're right. You're good.
Oh, there is also this really good scene that sets up the lesson that Joe has to learn in this movie. And this kid is like, I don't know if I can do this, and yada yada, and Joe just gives, like, this really, like, heartfelt, like, you know what, I think you can do it, alright? I mean, don't care about what anyone else says, you gotta believe in you, and stuff like that. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is. I mean, it's Pixar.
Exactly. And, really, it also kind of sets up the lesson that, Joe has to learn in this movie. And it's, hey, maybe your life hasn't gone the way that you wanted it to, but, think about what you have done with what you do have. And I think that's a beautiful message. But, we'll get to more of that later. Jacob?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I thought you were gonna, say something. It's okay. But yeah, I like that you kind of instantly feel bad for Joe, or maybe not feel bad for Joe, but you get behind him, you're like, yeah, I like this guy, I want him to succeed. Because, I think we can all empathize with a guy who has a dream, and he's all about getting onto that dream. He wants to get that dream so bad.
Oh yeah, especially for people who really want to pursue their dreams. That many people would be like, "Oh, you're never gonna be like a filmmaker or something. That's like hard to achieve." But if you're like Joe Gartner, who's very ambitious, and he's like, "No, I want to pursue this dream. I'm going to, and I know I am." I can instantly relate to that.
Yeah, it's really good. He ends up getting a call one day from one of his old students, who's a drummer by the name of, I forget his name actually. His name is Lamont, but he goes by the nickname Curly because he has curly hair, and he is played by none other than Questlove, who is a phenomenal drummer for the Roots. He's the drummer of the Roots. And if you don't know who the Roots are, they're the band that plays on the Jimmy Fallon show. But they're also very good on... But they're also really good. I really like Questlove as well. He's a very good drummer. He contacts him one day, and he says, "Hey, I got a thing for you." And he's like, "Hey, you really influenced my life, and I know you're really passionate about this stuff, but I'm playing with this lady called Dorothy Williams. Oh boy. Who is this very serious, very good jazz musician who's like, yeah, that's the real time, baby." And Joe, of course, is very excited about this. And he's like, yeah, boy. So he gets over So he ends up preparing for the concert, or not concert, but he prepares to audition for the concert to be in her band, her quartet, as it's called in jazz. It's not really a band. But Joe goes over there. So after a while of thinking about it and telling his mom, and he's like, "Mom, I'm really gonna make it this time," and his mom's like, "Okay." But he ends up going over there, and here comes one, and then comes one of my favorite sequences of the movie, where he starts to play, and he just freaking gets into it. And I mean, if you are a creative person, you completely understand where he's at. Like he's in it. He's in it, like the zone.
Yeah.
It's like, and you can just tell. And I love the attention to detail on the piano. And apparently they actually pulled from a musician named John Batiste in order to recreate the piano, to recreate him playing the piano. And it's so good.
It's gorgeous.
Oh my god, it's so good. And it's just like, and you can just tell he's just so into it. And it's so infectious. I love it.
Oh, I love it. One of my favorite sequences in the movie.
Oh man, especially later when it shows what it is. Oh god, it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say Dorothea seems like the type of woman, very serious and not easily impressed. But once she sees him playing like that, she's like, "Hey, you're pretty cool. She's like, let's play for the show." And Joe is just so excited, and you feel really happy for him, and you end up really getting excited alongside him, and he ends up leaving. He's so excited. He's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna call my mom." And then right as he's about to head home, he ends up falling into a manhole because his excitement distracted him. Yikes.
Ooh.
I'm surprised he didn't die right there. Or is that the implication that he died? I don't know.
Yeah. The implication that he died, but
Joe's like, and he ends up waking up, and he's like a little cute soul. Like, there's a thing with Pixar that they like making cute things,
Yeah.
Like that kid from Up.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. The little plushies from the Toy Story, the alien plushies, the claw, the claw aliens, yeah. But yeah, he ends up becoming a little soul, and he ends up finding himself in the great beyond, which is basically the afterlife. And I really like what it looks like. It's kind of, it's what do you call it? What would you say about it? It's very serene.
It's a very distinctive world.
Oh yes. Sorry.
And a lot of people, when Joe heads to the Great Beyond, a lot of people compared it to Inside Out, which I don't know why. It's nowhere near close to being Inside Out in regards to, like, the similarities, in my opinion, on, like, the designs of everybody in the Great Beyond. But overall, very unique look on how it would look like if there was a Great Beyond in real life.
If there were an afterlife, it's like, it's kind of what people
afterlife.
think it looks like. And I like how it's an escalator that heads to the great beyond, the afterlife, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Joe's like, oh, hell no! So he ends up trying to escape from the, he ends up trying to escape down the escalator, and he ends up falling into what is called the Great Before, which is kind of which is basically the idea of our afterlife looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gorgeous. Again, the animation in this film is just on another level.
Oh yeah, every time Pixar makes a new film, the animation just gets even better and better. And as I said, The Great Before, very distinctive, and I love it.
Oh, yeah, and it does make me wonder what the actual afterlife looks like, but, you know, I won't get too into details. Uh, he ends up in The Great Before, and he ends up finding just this kind of place where these little baby souls are just kind of running around, and you get to kind of see the world a little bit. And then he ends up meeting like these kind of distorted, almost like Picasso paintings. These guys called, these counselors basically is what they're called here on this Wikipedia page. And they're all called Jerry. And I just think it's hilarious how they're all just like New Zealanders.
I know. I love that film.
It makes me think of Taika Waititi. He's just like, hey, man. You know?
Yeah.
And apparently these Jerrys are, they prepare unborn souls for life with the help of mentor souls. So that's cool. And each soul ends up getting a badge, which grants passage to the Earth once it's filled out with personality traits. And initially, the Jerrys mistake Joe for a soul, and they end up assigning him to another soul called 22. Ooh, oh boy, 22. What do you think of 22, Jacob?
22, very hilarious character, voiced by Tina Fey, who is really good in this. And I love when we meet 22, she's just like, she doesn't want to go to Earth, she hates Earth, and she's like, what's the big deal about Earth? Like, from what I heard, it stinks. And then Joe's like, hey, there's a lot to living on Earth and living life. There's meaning to it. And it creates this, like, conflict between them.
Yeah, I kind of like how she's a moody teenager. I really like how she's a moody teenager, and I mean Tina Fey. I mean, what do you got to say? I mean, she's that rhymed, but she is fantastic. I mean, you know, say what you want about she's kind of goofy, and well, that's kind of the point. She is a comedian after all. But I really like her, especially when she's with Amy Poehler. They're very good together. But which is funny because Amy Poehler played Happiness in Inside Out. Tina Fey is great here. I love her in this movie. I love how 22 is almost like an angsty teenager. She's like, I don't want to go to Earth. It sucks, and people are stupid. And you know what? I'm totally happy here. And there's this scene where they're walking around, and she there's a lot of great gags. Like she's like, I've known it all. Like I've had mentors and people, and she's talked to like Abraham Lincoln and Winston Churchill and all sorts of other crazy people. So she ends up realizing that Joe is in a coma at the hospital. So she's like, oh, so maybe you're not dead yet. And then she's like, well, all right, fine, I'll let you. And she's like, fine, I'll let you help me find my spark so I can complete my badge. And I'll give it to you so you can return home. Because I don't want to go to Earth. And Joe's like, okay, whatever. Joe ends up going around and trying to help her out, and it doesn't really work. And there's this great scene, one of my favorite gags. Let me just get this out of the way. I fucking hate basketball. But there's this place they go to called The Zone, which was basically I was alluding to that earlier. There's this kind of place called The Zone, and basically The Zone is where people just get really, really into their passion, and ended up creating this euphoric kind of trance. You're just so into it, and it's like, you know, that's another. You can't describe it, but when you feel it, you know exactly what it is.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of great gags where she just starts fucking with people. Like this Shakespearean lady's having this great monologue, and she just like throws something at her, and she's just like, oh, a knife, and she just yells line. And she's like, oh. And then she goes over to this, and she's all like, oh, I've been messing with these guys for years. She throws the thing, and it's the Knicks playing basketball, and the dude's like about to do a slam dunk, and he just fails miserably. Let me tell you, I mean, I hate basketball, but I got that joke. Except for the Knicks suck. Oh my god. But apparently, the zone can also become this, can also become a trap for lost souls, basically people who've kind of been beaten down, like this one guy who's in an office and is just fucking zoned out. So, yeah, they end up going in there, and they look around for a little bit, and they end up finding this kind of desert area, which is basically where all the lost souls are at. And they end up meeting a guy called Moonwind, who's I'm gonna go on a limb here. Does look a lot like the musician Moondog, who is a really weird musician who did a lot of very strange music, if you want to look it up sometime. But Moonwind is played by Graham Norton, of all people. And he's like a pirate captain, I think, if I remember correctly. A ship. He's on like a pirate-like ship.
Yeah.
And he's like this really weird hippie guy who can like go in between like life and, you know, the Great Before or the Zone, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's not dead. He's alive. It's just I mean, he's not, I wouldn't say he's dead. Or, well, he's not dead, because we do meet him in the real life. We do meet him in real life later. And they end up finding this place where, and he says, I can find you a place, and I can locate your body on Earth if you want. And Joe's like, hell yeah! So they end up going on a ship, and they end up getting attacked. I think, is this later, or do they get attacked by the souls at this point?
That's later.
Oh, that's later. So Joe is like, alright. He's like, alright, let's do this. So they end up, finding Joe's body after flying around and giving some exposition about the lost souls in there and that don't make them angry because they will attack you. And Joe ends up, is this later, or is this the scene also where they end up, like, snapping that guy out of, like, his brain-dead job, and he's like, I'm gonna do something! I'm gonna be somebody! And he, like, runs out and he, like, smashes the keyboard.
Oh, yeah, it's right here.
Oh, yeah. He's like, oh, yeah, like, this guy, and they end up, like, snapping him out of his, like, funk, and he's like, I'm gonna be somebody! I'm gonna do something! And he's up, like, running out of there. So anyways, they locate Joe's body, and Joe's like, oh, hell yes, thank you so much, and he ends up returning to Earth, but he accidentally gets, he knocks, like, 22 in there, and, they end up entering their bodies, except 22 is now in Joe's body, and Joe is now in the cat's body. There's a cat laying there, it's like a therapy cat, and he ends up becoming the cat. Which kind of makes me question, like, okay, so, you know, when they're, like, talking with each other, you know, so is it like when Joe starts talking, he's like the cat, and he's like, and then Joe's just, like, sitting there, and then 22 as Joe is just like, oh, yes. I'm surprised there's no one just like, has Joe fucking lost his mind?
Yeah, because to everybody else, like, the cat's just meowing, just, like, hysterically, and while 22 in Joe's body, like, oh, I understand what you're saying, what you're telling me, and everyone, yeah, it has me, yeah, I've always thought, like, when the cat's meowing hysterically, are you, like, trying to kill the cat or something?
I don't know. But it's really weird. It's like, And everyone just accepts this. Is it like he's not? I don't get that. Like that's kind of like a plot hole, I suppose. Is like, so is it like the cat like meows at when Joe is talking? I don't know. But as I said, there's a lot of hilarity in this point. So Joe's like, you're in my body, and she's like, I'm in a human body. And they end up like getting out of there inadvertently, and it's very funny.
So funny.
And the woman's like, oh no, I forget the cat's name. It's like Mr. Wiggles. they break out of there, which again, I'm like, they don't like go after him or anything. Like, this is weird. But anyways, I digress. So they end up anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of I'm kind of scatterbrained today. Anyway, so Joe and 22, who's in 22 is in Joe's body. Joe is in the cat's body. They decide to go around, and 22 starts experiencing life and what it's like. And 22 gets kind of freaked out because she has no idea how to operate a human body. And she starts like wobbling around in Joe's body, and Joe's like, oh wait, don't break anything, Mr. Cat. And yeah, it's really something. The comedy in this film is on point.
Oh, it's a hilarious movie.
What do you think, Jacob? What do you think, Jacob, about this scene?
Yeah, this point where 22 is accidentally in Joe's body and Joe's in the cat's body, it's both hilarious, but at the same time, you get to see 22's character grow as she learns how to live life and what to do, and you see Joe as this cat helping her out, say oh, you haven't tried pizza, try it. Or you haven't done this, do it. It's both beautiful and hilarious at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is also another one of my favorite parts of the movie is finding the beauty in the little moments.
Mm-hmm. The most simplest moments are the ones that you need to cherish.
Exactly, and she's like, what is this rumbling sound? And Joe's all like, yo, dog. He's like, yo, dog, you're probably just hungry. And she's like, hungry? What's that? And he's like, okay. So he ends up, sneaking up and stealing some pizza, and he's like, here, try it. And she's all like, well, what is it? It's like, hey, you'll like it. It's called pizza, okay? Just eat it. You'll like it. And she's like, okay. And she ends up eating it, and she loves this. You can tell. She's just like, yes. I love this. I also enjoyed that we actually see Joe mentoring her by giving her an experience of what life is like, even if it's inadvertent.
Yes.
And so basically Joe is like, shit. So he tries to make the best of a situation. So she decides to try and make the best of it. So Joe decides to try and make a situation. She's like, okay, you're going to have to live in my body for a little bit until we figure this out. And she's like, what? I don't know what you do. And he's all like, look, it's okay. I'll help you out. I'll guide you along. And she's like, fine. And, they walk around. They go to a little train station. And they end up seeing this guy playing music. This homeless guy playing music. And for some reason, 22 is really impressed by it. It's very good. Joe decides that they need to find Moonwind. And they end up walking around waiting for him. And they end up finding him. He's like this weird hippie dude who is, he's like this weird hippie guy. He's like the end is nigh type of crazy people on the sidewalk that you see.
Yeah.
And she says, oh, hello, it's you two again. She's like, he's like, yeah, man, I need help, my body. And he's all like, oh, okay, I'll meet you at the jazz club later, and we'll restore you to your body. And She's like, okay. So Joe, Joe ends up basically saying again to 22 to, hey, you'll be in my body and I'll look around for a little bit, and I'll guide you around for a little bit, and I'll tell you what to do. Okay, it's fine. Just don't worry. Just listen to what I'll say. Okay. And she's like, okay. And then they end up enjoying some of the small moments, really. And I really love the music in this movie. I forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah, the music is amazing.
Yeah, it's also done by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross of Nine Inch Nails fame. And you know what? They're freaking amazing. And in this movie, no different.
Nope.
They're great. But Jacob, you want to take it from here? What happens next?
All right. They're having these little small moments, and Joe is once again teaching 22 how life works and how you live life with just the simplest moments. And again, it's amazing, and we get to...
All right.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. And it's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great... I really enjoy it. And we also get to see the things that Joe doesn't really pay attention to, because he's so single-minded on jazz, and this is something that really stuck with me, because I'm kind of the same way. I tend to be very singularly purposed. You know what I mean, Jacob?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I get you.
And sometimes that means I kind of don't think about how. Sometimes sometimes I forget to ask people about what they like to do, and because I get so invested in what I like to do, because again, I'm very singular minded, and Joe's very similar way. Another one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when he goes to his hair guy, who I forgot to mention earlier. He's this guy called damn it, what's that guy's name? We'll just call him his hair barber. Oh wait, no, his name's Dez. At least I think so. Yes. He ends up... One of my favorite scenes in this movie is when he ends up having a conversation with his hair barber. I think it's Dez. And, and 22, as Joe talks with him about his dreams. And, Dez talks about, I wanted to be a veterinarian, actually. And she's like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, I was really passionate about it. But, sometimes life doesn't work out, and you end up, getting a, and you end up, I ended up being but he ended up being a hairdresser, or a hair barber, yeah. And she's like, well, don't you, he's like, well, don't you still want to be a veterinarian? He's like, well, I didn't get exactly what I want, but I'm still happy doing what I do. It still brings me pleasure. And, I don't know why, but it reminded me of something my dad told me, because, he's always kind of always hard on me to, succeed, and, I don't want to, end up like my dad in terms of getting a job I don't like. But one day, he just kind of pulled me aside, and he's like, I may complain about my job, but, I like my life, And I was like, oh. And, I don't know, that conversation just reminded me of that for some reason. And, I love that scene. I also love later, he's like, oh, well, why didn't you tell me this before? And he's all like, well, you never asked. But you know what? I'm glad you did today. And that kind of gives Joe a little perspective there.
It does.
Meanwhile, there's a soul counter. Apparently there's like a soul counter guy. Except they're not called Jerry. They're called Terry. Dun dun dun.
Dun,
No. Again, another New Zealander. I guess New Zealanders are like the prophets of the afterlife. I don't know, but it's funny because this is a woman. I thought Terry was a guy. I thought the person voicing him was a guy. I guess this woman, Rachel House, just has one of those voices, but it's a woman, and Terry is just like he's like a soul counter, and she's very good at her job. And
too good.
Too good. He's too good. She's too good at her job, and they're like, wait a second, someone's missing. I gotta find him. So she ends up like going to the Jerry's, and I love how the Jerry's are just like, oh no, it's Terry. Again, I really like how, the Great Beyond is kind of like a workplace. You get like coffee, and you're like, oh yeah, how's your day going, Jerry? And he's like, oh, it's good, Jerry. Just having a weird day. And he's like, business as usual. And then Terry shows up, and like, it's Terry.
Dun, dun, dun.
But Terry's all like, yo, I'm missing a soul here. And they're all like, come on, like, you'll miss a soul sometimes. And he's like, no, I gotta find this soul. Like, I gotta find it, like, right now. And they're like, okay, fine, go find it then. You can go see who it is. And she ends up going, or they end up, or I don't know what their gender is, okay? I'm sorry if I misgender it. I don't think that really matters in this sort of case. But, it's like attempts to try and, catch Joe are very humorous. Because it, like, they disguise themselves as, like, a sign. And there's one scene where they accidentally catch somebody. Just this poor random gentleman. But yeah, he's like, ha, gotcha. And she's like, oh dear. And captures just this random dude who's walking down the street. And she ends up letting him go. He's all traumatized. He's all like, what? And he's all like, oh, sorry, I thought you were someone else. Let's just forget this little business happened. He ends up going away, and the guy just, like, sits there, and he just looks traumatized as all get out. It's just, oh, man. Oh, I love that scene. Terry also gets into other shenanigans, and they, like, she tries to catch Joe, and they end up failing, and it's just, like, it's really bad. But anyway, so Joe ends up going around, and he ends up having another conversation with the girl who was playing the girl who was playing the tuba, and she talks to her again about her thing, and she says, and she's once again like, I don't know if I can do it, and 22's like, man, you're, again, another one of my favorite scenes where she's just like, man, you're really good, like, you should keep doing this. And she's like, really? And she's like, yeah, I really think so. And Joe's just like, wait, he's like, get in here, I need your help with something. Like, Joe's so, like, super focused, he's all like, come on, get in here, help me. And, she, like, goes back in, and they're, like, doing stuff. I forget exactly what he's doing. But, yeah. Anyways. So Joe ends up preparing a little bit for, he ends up preparing to go to the concert, and he wants, 22 to help him out. And he ends up, they end up going to his mom, and he's like, oh boy, my mom. And she's all like, oh, well, what's wrong with your mom? And she's all like, oh, she loves me, but, she's just like, she doesn't really believe in me and whatnot. And she's all like, well, why don't you just talk to her? And that gives him the idea. He's like, you know what? Let's talk to her. I'll tell you what to say, and you just say it, okay? And she's like, okay. And he gives him like this, really heartfelt speech about doing what he loves and, why he loves doing it. And she's all like, well, I don't want you ending up like your dad. Your dad had a dream and he ended up, doing it. And she's like, well, why do you act like you always seem happiest when I'm not doing what what I love doing. You know, it's like I think about it when the moment I wake up and the moment I go to sleep. It's like this really beautiful scene.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I really enjoy it. I think it's a great scene.
It is, where you see Joe finally like putting his foot down and just asking his mom like, "Why don't you believe in me?" And this is my dream. This is my life. I live on like wanting to be a jazz musician, and you're not being supportive, and I just don't know why.
And you know, the mom actually gives an understandable reason. You know, it's like, you know, this isn't a sure thing, and you know, I don't want you ending up like your dad did. You know, I mean, and I'm sorry. And she kind of gives the whole, I'm sorry if you ever thought I didn't believe in you. I just, you know, I worry about you. You're my son and all, and he's all like, but she sees that he has this gig now, but she gives him this old special suit.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, it's Dad's suit," and and Joe's really excited about it. He's like, "As the cat," which again, you know, I'm curious. So when 22 is Joe is telling his mom this, so is the cat just meowing at it? What do you think, Jacob?
I have no idea. Like, are you whispering in his ear, or are you just meowing like from everyone else? Everyone else is just like, why is this cat? Why is this cat here, and why is it just randomly meowing while Joe is trying to tell his mom like, why don't you believe me and all that?
No, it's like no, and everyone just accepts it. It's just like he's telling her what he thinks, and I'm like, well, shouldn't the cat just be like, and you know what? You know, I get that they probably didn't want to do that because they felt it would have undercut the like dramatic weight of the scene. But it's like that is something you wonder, right?
Yeah,
I'm not alone in this.
Yeah, that's a plot hole that's like, man, I didn't notice that until you brought it up. Now it bugs me. But no, it's an animated film anyway, so I can overlook it.
I think it's minuscule, really.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's 30 minutes till we can get a haircut.
Ah, crap.
What?
Doing my podcast. Sorry about that. Jacob, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Alright, sorry, my dad came in.
Oh.
So after Joe has this conversation with uh, so at the end of the day, Joe and 22 end up rendezvousing with Moonwind to return Joe to his body. That ends up failing because Joe ends up because 22 has been impacted by these, you know, kind of small experiences, but Joe's just like, come on, it's just it's just everyday life stuff. And 22's like, well, you know, I kind of like this now. And she ends up fleeing because she can't deal with it.
No, because she realized that living life is amazing, and that I was wrong the entire time saying Earth sucked.
Yeah. Exactly. And 22's like, well, it meant a lot to me. And she's all like, wait. And then and then he ends up he chases them. And as they run through a subway station, Terry ends up trapping them and bringing them back to the Great Before.
Oh boy.
So, Terry ends up bringing them back to the Great Before, and 22 ends up realizing that her badge is filled out. So she can actually become a person now.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. Sorry, I guess this is my episode where I'm kind of stumbling around a little bit. Jake, do you want to take over from here for a little bit?
Oh, sure, yeah. So, 22 finally gets her badge, where, as Brit said, she can finally become a person and live on Earth. But then Joe does not like this because he still wants to pursue his dream and all that. And and they argue for a bit. And then I don't remember what Joe says. He says something that kind of brings 22 down. And then he gets upset and he's like, I hope you have a good life on Earth, because he steals her badge, but then angrily he just like, here, fine. But then 22's like, here, I hope it was worth it. And then she goes, and then she's really upset. She goes to the euphoric trance that we saw before.
Mm-hmm.
And then Joe regains consciousness, and he's like, "Oh, gotta get to the concert."
Well, a little bit before that, another one of my favorite scenes. Joe ends up running the one of the Jerry's, and he talks to him like, "Oh, I found my spark." And Jerry's like, "What are you talking about?" And he talks like, "Oh, I got my start." And then Jerry just tells Joe that a spark isn't a soul's purpose in life. He tries to explain this to Joe, but Joe ends up not wanting to believe this, and he ends up using 22's badge to return to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So then after that, he ends up going to the show, and he ends up having it actually goes great, because once again, he ends up playing really well, and the show is successful. But sadly, Joe doesn't feel happy, unfortunately.
No.
And it feels like his life just hasn't changed all that much. And she's just like, well, and he's all like, well, what do we do now? And she's like, well, gotta wait for the next show. She's like, well, and there's something else we could do? He's like, look, you played great. Let's just continue on the good traction that we have. And Joe's like, all right. So that's what he does.
Yeah. She asked him because she knows, like, there's something up, like, what's going on. And then he says, I've been thinking about this my whole life, and now that I've done it, I just thought I'd feel different.
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, well, hey, you did well. Well, we just got to keep doing it. Or something like that. I forget exactly what she says to him.
Yeah, she says something. I can't remember.
And Joe ends up heading home, and he's kind of dejected. But then after a while, he thinks about it, and he ends up finding all these objects that 22 collected when he was in his body. And Joe ends up putting all of them on the ground. Or not on the ground, but on the piano. And he ends up having, like, this moment. And it's actually what many people call one of the greatest sequences in the movie. Joe just starts playing the piano, and it's like this really heartfelt scene.
Yeah.
And he just starts playing, and that, man, damn you, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, because this music is so good. And he just starts playing, and he ends up realizing that the experiences that she had when she was in his body, that's given her spark.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe ends up feeling bad, and, well, you know how this is going, but damn it, it's so good that, you know what, I don't care, really.
Yeah, I mean, like, just talk about this real quick. Of course, Pixar has to stab you in the heart, and this scene is a prime example. Because it's Joe coming to a realization that he took all the beautiful things he experienced for granted. There's nothing wrong with having a dream, but don't make it your sole reason for living. Life is filled with moments, good and bad. Those moments are special because nobody else got to experience them like you did. Life is beautiful because we all experience it in our own way, a way nobody else can take from us. And when Joe realizes that, it's beautiful.
Oh man, it's like this really profound thing. And it's also really, and you also just see Joe realizing that Joe realizes that, he was so, like, again, he was so singularly focused on what he loved that he was forgetting all the beautiful moments and all the people he's touched just by living his life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I think this movie is about. It's about perspective in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and this scene alone, it beautifully explores his overall message. Like, you don't need a purpose in life; you just need to live it.
Exactly. Yeah. So Joe ends up feeling bad that he took advantage of 22, so he ends up playing the piano, and he then enters the zone because he wants to give her her badge back. Sadly, he ends up realizing that she's become a lost soul. So he tracks down Moonwind again. They get on the ship, and they end up trying to track her down, and they end up getting attacked by all these lost souls, and they end up finding 22. And she's like really sad and depressed because she actually started really liking being at Earth. And he ends up giving her his he enters the zone, he ends up finding her, and he ends up showing her a maple seed that she collected to remind her of spending time at Earth. And that kind of snaps her out of her little thing. And then they realize that a spark isn't a soul's purpose, but it indicates that that soul wants to live. And it's like, man. Damn you, Pixar. Every time. God. I still love them, though. And Joe ends up turning her back to normal, and he returns her badge and ends up escorting her out of the Great Before to her journey to Earth. And again, it's so beautiful.
Once again, Pixar just loves to tug on your heartstrings.
Yeah, why don't you just stab me in the night? Why don't you just stab me in the heart with your fucking knife? Why don't you?
Like, damn it, Pixar.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. And it's just a beautiful moment. They both fall in together, and he ends up letting go of her hand, and he accepts that he's probably gonna die because of this, and he's like, you know what, I may have not lived the life I wanted, but kind of like how Des said earlier, I'm happy with where it ended up.
Yep.
So he ends up preparing to enter the great beyond, and Jerry ends up stopping him and says, hey, you actually managed to get 22 to finally live. Because, not they were trying to get rid of her, but they wanted to, give her a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe's just like, oh, yeah, it was fine. I mean, I think I need to, I think I need to leave. I just, need to leave. I'm like, well, I'm sure, I'm sure it'll create an unbalance. He's like, I wouldn't worry about that. And another great gag. Terry's, looking at the thing, and he's like, oh, look over there. And she, looks over, and they, switch the numbers. Oh, God, that's good. That's good. That's good. And Jerry's basically like, yep, you can basically live again. So what are you going to do? And one of my favorite ending lines for a while, he says, "You know what? I'm gonna live my life, and I'm gonna live every minute of it." Oh God, so good, so good, so good.
Speaking of the ending, there is one thing that I really loved about Pixar that was very different from anything usual from Pixar. While Joe is dying, the screen shows Disney Pixar Presents, but then it continues with the movie. No credits or anything after that screen until we get to the very end of the movie when Joe Gardner walks out of his apartment alive. That's when they show the title screen Soul. Because that's when the story begins. Now with his acknowledged to live his life every moment. Beautiful.
Oh man, it's so good. I remember just being really touched by this film, and that was Soul. You know what? I'm not gonna lie. I was a little shaky today, but you know what? This was really good. I really enjoy Soul. I love Soul. Very good movie.
Yeah, Soul is adds another beautifully crafted gem to Pixar's crown.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, Soul is the anti-Whiplash in a lot of ways. Um, but I would even say it's a lot more touching than Whiplash. I wouldn't say Whiplash is a touching film. I will say they're both similar. They do inspire a lot of emotion, just a lot of differing emotions.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, this film is incredible. I love how this film talks about these weighty themes, like what does it mean to live a good life, you know? And it talks, but again, it talks about it in a very accessible way.
Indeed.
And I loved every second of Soul. Really, there was not a second where I was really. I mean, yeah, there was the kind of how come the cat isn't meowing? But you know, whatever. That's nothing. I really enjoyed this film. Soul is another triumph from Pixar.
Indeed. My only major gripe is that I didn't get to see it in theaters.
Yeah, that really sucked. I saw it on Disney Plus too. I didn't see it in the theaters. I really would have liked to if the theaters were open at that time. I actually don't know if they were. I think they were at the time. But man, I do wish I saw it at the theaters. But you know what? I don't regret watching it, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, it is a really good movie. Pete Docter did it once again.
Yep, he had another home run with Soul.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a fantastic movie. I love Soul. I think it's a great film. One of the best films of 2020, really.
Oh, absolutely. It was in my top 3 of favorite films of 2020. It definitely deserved its Oscar for Best Animated Feature. And the reason why I wanted to discuss Soul on our Black History Month special is that this is Pixar's first film with the black lead.
And, oh, really? I didn't actually know that.
Oh, yeah. That's the reason why I wanted to talk about it. And the fact that it's an amazing film.
Oh, that's really interesting. Interesting, indeed. You know, I wouldn't say this is I was going to ask why you decided to do this, because I wouldn't say this film is about the black experience. But then again, I'm not really... that's not really what I was looking for. I mean, I was just looking for films that... I mean, it's a universal story, even if it is about black people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's, like, literally, like, the reason... One of the only reasons why I chose Soul for our Black History Month special is because, like, Pixar's first film with their first black lead.
Yeah, and you know what? It's really good. Doesn't feel forced. I love mostly everything about it, and the real reason I really watched this film is, I'm a huge fan of jazz music. One of my favorite albums of all time is Kind of Blue from Miles Davis. Excuse me. And Soul has a lot of that kind of thing where they're in the zone. And I love how this film explores having a passion, but also kind of tweaking it a little bit, saying, you know what? Maybe you do have a passion, but sometimes life doesn't always work out that way. And, you know, you gotta remember all the good things you're doing while you're here in the now, instead of thinking about in the future. Because that's kind of Joe's arc in the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love it. I think it's a fantastic film.
Oh yeah, I mean, for me, it's in my top 10 of Pixar films ever. Once again, it's a film that it beautifully explores a story, an emotional story about the meaning of life, along with phenomenal voice acting, beautiful animation as usual from Pixar, and a really relevant human story. Actually, this is a film that was perfect. That was perfect for 2020, especially in the pandemic era.
Oh, most definitely. I think Soul is a film that a lot of people would relate to because we're in kind of a scary time right now. Or we were in a scary time then, and well, we're kind of still in a kind of scary time now. I think Soul was a film that people needed at this point in time. I mean, not that it's because it's like but it's a positive message about what, live life and enjoy it while you still can, because life doesn't last forever. And you could say that's the most cliche thing ever, but I love how Soul explains that to the viewer. It's not just like a dumb motivation speech.
Oh yeah, as we say on here, it's all about execution.
Exactly. And you make that a T-shirt. We're gonna be selling Brit and Jacob merch.
Yeah, it's all about execution.
But yeah, I love Soul. I think it's a great film, and I might actually add it to my favorite movies. I don't know. It is a fantastic film. Now, do I like it more than Whiplash? Hell no. But it is a damn good movie nonetheless.
Oh yeah, it's another win from Pixar. Once again, beautifully explores this message about the meaning of life and saying it's okay to follow your dreams, but don't make it your main purpose just to live life. Just live it. And Soul, yeah, there's not more I can say about it. It's another incredible film from Pixar, and Pete Docter has done it yet again.
Most definitely. I think it's a great film. Soul is fantastic. And it's not. I like the double meaning because the Soul isn't just about the music, but it's also about the meaning of life. Fantastic film. I love Soul.
Oh, another thing. Soul actually did win an Oscar for best music.
Oh man, what a deserved. Oh man,
100%.
that was deserved. That is so deserved right there.
100%.
Because Soul is fucking about music and better have. And you know what? Fucking Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, they deserve a freaking Oscar.
Absolutely.
And let me again just gush a little bit. The animation in this, so good. So good.
God, as
So
I
good.
said, it's gotten to the point where it is fucking photorealistic.
Yeah, I know. I know.
The backgrounds, the entire environment, the skies, even the littlest of details. You can see on Joe Gartner's sweater, you can see the individual hairs of fabric sticking out of his T-shirt.
Exactly. It's nuts. It's nuts how you do it.
It's insane on the level of animation Pixar has reached.
Oh man, it's so good. I love it. It's just, it's such a fantastic movie, and it is a triumph of animation. The boys at Pixar should be proud of themselves.
Yeah, just pat yourselves on the back because you made another amazing film.
Indeed. But yeah, I really enjoy Soul. I think it's a great film. Really, to sum up my ending thoughts on the whole thing. So we kind of finished early here today. Jacob, would you like to talk about some other stuff?
Oh yes.
Would you like to talk about some other things before we leave?
Yes, I do. And I actually did see 2 new movies this week.
Oh, really? What did you see?
I finally saw Free Guy.
Oh, you saw Free Guy, did you?
Yeah, it was on Disney Plus. I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch it.
You know what? I don't actually think I've heard of this movie. I don't know why I said that. I'm not on my A game today. But what'd you think of the movie? What's it about? What'd you think? What was it?
Free Guy. It was.
Oh, Free Guy. I thought you said Freak Eye.
No, Free Guy.
Oh, Free Guy. Okay. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Oh boy. Yeah, Free
Guy. Free Guy. Underrated ass movie.
I could not agree more. This movie was freaking great.
Or at least, I think it was a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, a surprisingly emotional story with a clever concept, self-aware humor. Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds, but he is amazing as usual.
I mean,
it is one of the biggest surprises I've seen.
Oh, I think it's fantastic. I'm glad you liked it, though. I remember when I saw it, my parents were like, hey, we were watching this movie, and we really enjoyed it. And I was like, oh boy, that's cool. And they ended up, and I ended up watching it, and I was like, wow, this film, really good. This was way better than I thought it would be. I'll put it that way.
Oh, yeah. Initially, when I saw the trailer, I was like, it looks like a video game movie, and Sean Levy, a couple of films are exceptional, but overall, not really the biggest fan of Sean Levy. But I would say he outdid himself with Free Guy.
Oh man, it was better than I thought. I think the trailer is another one, where the trailers kind of undersold the movie.
Yeah, because it looked like for me, it looked like another video game movie that was going to have a lot of product placement in it and just not,
A lot of that corny, self-aware humor, and I'm used that in asterisks.
Yeah.
I use air quotes there.
Yeah. Exactly. It looked like, how do I say it? It was like Pixels for me. Like Pixels, great concept, but the execution was absolutely horrible, and I was afraid Free Guy was going to be another Pixels, but thankfully that wasn't the case.
No, that's another one I'd like to talk about at some point. I love it. It's a very heartfelt film. It's a surprisingly heartfelt movie.
Oh, Free Guy. Yeah, very heartfelt.
With a lot of great commentary about living life and finding your purpose, as well as a very clever way of introducing AI. Which,
very
oh boy, yeah, exactly. I'm just like, man, it blew me away. Can't believe they pulled that off. Great film. I enjoy Free Guy. It was one of the biggest surprises of the year. Usually when I judge a movie before I see it, I'm usually right on the money. But you know what? I was wrong about Free Guy, and I was happy to be. And you know what? I was kind of happy to be wrong. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I mean, like as I said, I was really scared about this film. I was scared there's going to be another Pixels where, once again, a clever concept, but execution might not be very good. But Free Guy, it had a clever concept, and they actually made a good film out of it. It was clever. It was funny, surprisingly heartfelt. Overall, major surprise. I'm going to watch it again.
I don't blame you. It is a great film. What else did you see?
A Disney film called Encanto.
Encanto?
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard of this. Yes. I saw a little bit of it at my cousin's house, but I'm like, Is it good?
Yeah. I found it on Letterboxd.
I found it on Letterboxd.
Surprisingly, pretty good. I will say my favorite part of the film is that it beautifully executes its message about it has our main character who's surrounded by relatives who have these gifts and powers, but she's the only one that doesn't have a gift or any powers. And I think that's a great message for kids in our superhero era world, where they're like, where all these characters who have superpowers, they finally get to look up to a character that does not have superpowers, who's surrounded by other people who have superpowers. That's the thing I really admired about the film. But as a film, it's a Disney film. It's pretty fun. The music is amazing. The animation, of course, spectacular. Though I will say, not as emotional as I would have liked it to be. Overall, it's a pretty good movie.
Fair enough. I have not seen any films at all this year. I've rewatched like 2, and I saw like another movie. Like I forget now, but hold on. Let me look at all the movies I've seen this year. The only thing I've watched recently was one of the things I did watch recently was a show called The Legend of Vox Machina, which was very good, surprisingly. It's on Amazon Prime if you haven't watched it. Okay, so here's the movies I saw. I saw Jackass 3.5, which wasn't as good as the first one. I saw the Snyder cut of Justice League, which was fine. And I also rewatched Silence of the Lambs, which is great.
Oh yeah.
But I'm gonna see. I haven't been to the movie theater this year. Like that's kind of sad.
No, I haven't seen any new films this year.
You know what I did see though? Here's the bright side. I am going to see The Batman in the movie theaters next week.
Oh yeah.
On Friday. When are you seeing it?
Friday as well.
Oh man. Yeah. Apparently, Tig is also seeing it this weekend, so that'll be fun.
Oh boy. Cannot wait.
Oh man, I can't wait. Like I'm ready for this. Like give this movie to me right now.
And please be good.
Oh,
please be good.
I think it'll be good, man. Really, really do. I'm not just
Honestly,
I'm not just like blowing smoke up your ass. Like I really think this movie could be like really good.
Though there's one thing I do know that once Pattinson does his thing, he'll be my favorite Batman.
Oh man, he might he might become my favorite Batman because in all honesty, he just has the character down. He has the voice, he has the intimidation. Like, oh man,
yeah,
he's so good.
Yeah,
he's intimidating without it sounding super corny. Like, oh man, so good.
Exactly. And Britton, like when they announced it, I defended him the moment they announced it.
Oh, I know. I was defending him too, because despite Twilight, I've defended our Pats, and I think he's a great actor despite the incidents or despite some of the things he's gone through in his career.
And to be honest, he wasn't bad for what he was given in the Twilight films, in my opinion. It's just the film sucked. So they weren't his fault that the films suck. Like, he was decent for what he was given in those films. But when you see films like Good Time at a Lighthouse, he's a phenomenal actor.
You know what? I got an idea for next week.
Oh boy. What's that?
I got an idea for next week, but let's continue talking about Batman. And no, don't say it.
Oh boy.
Because I'm like,
curious.
Because it's actually the idea for the movie next week, and I'm like, I'll admit, I was a goober this week, and I also got stuck in my house, and I totally did not think of a movie until like just right now what we were talking about. So, but let's continue talking about what we're gonna talk about.
All right.
But yeah, Batman, can't wait for it. All honesty, just fucking stop teasing me already. Give me the damn movie. Just give me the movie. Just give me the film. Just give me the movie. Just give me the movie, DC and Warner Bros.
Give it to me already.
That sounds very suggestive, but I digress. Yes. Also, my other most anticipated film of this year is coming out in April, called The Northman, which it's kind of sad that the film. On the one hand, it's nice that your most anticipated films are coming out earlier this year, but also, what else are you gonna watch for the rest of the year?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, I just haven't been in the mood to watch movies recently. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any new films released this year. I mean, I don't want to see Uncharted because that looks generic as fuck. So I'm just gonna wait until I see the Batman. That'll be my first film I saw this year.
Yeah, same for me.
The only two films that I just mentioned that I just talked about here that I saw, new films, were Free Guy and Encanto, but that's it.
I'm not seeing Ray and the Last Dragon, but...
Oh, yeah. A really fun one.
I might need to make a list of films I want to see. I don't know, I've been kind of in a werewolf mood again. You know, werewolves are my favorite monsters. But there's no werewolf films on any of the streaming services I have, so... Yeah. It's a hard life for werewolf movies. Oh yes! Speaking of werewolf films, in a weird little crossover, Chris Stuckman, the guy who basically inspired us to do this thing, and hell, we rip him off a lot. This is basically Brit and Jake rip off Chris Stuckman, the podcast. But apparently, he's making a movie.
Yes.
And you bet your ass I'm going to go see that when it comes out, whenever that's going to be.
Oh, yeah. Shelby Oaks.
Shelby Oaks. I mean, you know, apparently he put up a Q&A on Vimeo about it, which I haven't had the chance to really see because I've been busy. But, oh man, I'm excited. What do you think? You're a big Chris Stuckman fan like myself?
Oh, yeah. Out of, there are, many film critics, for me, Roger Ebert, Jeremy Johns, the Flick Pick, and Chris Stuckman are my favorites. And Dan Murrow recently, but I digress. Chris Stuckman, he's my favorite YouTube film critic. Honestly, most of his opinions on films, there are a few that I disagree with him on, but most of his opinions on films I strongly agree on, and when I see them, I feel the same way as he does. So the fact that he is becoming a filmmaker and finally making a film, I'm excited to see what he does.
Me too. I'm very interested. Apparently, it's going to be very fittingly about YouTubers who investigate paranormal stuff, and that just fucking touches my buttons. So I'm definitely going to see that whenever it comes out. Will it be this year? Probably not, but I know I'll definitely go see it when I find the time. And also, he talked about a werewolf movie, which is why I brought him up when I talk about the werewolf stuff, because I like werewolves.
I do too.
And you know, I'm very disappointed. Let me go on a rant real quick about werewolves before we wrap this up. Werewolves, they're kind of pussified nowadays. They're not scary anymore.
Yes, thank you.
Like, why are they being fetishized? Just hashtag stop fetishizing werewolves. There you go.
I know. You give Dracula the spotlight, but not werewolves. Werewolves are fucking badass. Come on.
Oh, I know. It's really very frustrating to me as a werewolf fan. But back to Batman. I don't know. I mean, jumping back and forth from subject to subject. I'm very excited to talk about the Batman. In all honesty, I was thinking about having that as our conversation point next week, but I got another idea before we talk about the Batman.
Oh boy.
You better guess what it is. It is another Robert Pattinson movie that we've been talking about for a long time.
Oh, The Lighthouse, The Lighthouse?
Yeah! Ha ha ha! I was gonna get Tyg on.
Oh
Hopefully.
Boy.
And I'm hoping that this will be another guest spot, because my buddy Tyg really enjoys The Lighthouse as well. But next week, since we are ending our Black History Month marathon, I wanted to talk about The Lighthouse, which is a really good movie. So, yeah. Even though it's fucking weird and chaotic, and I don't know what the fuck is going on throughout the entirety of it, I think it's great. I really enjoy it.
Oh boy. My favorite film of 2019. I cannot wait.
You know, I saw it, I really liked it, and I saw it again recently, and I freaking love it now. So, I'm like, let's talk about it. I want to talk about it.
Oh boy. I gotta watch it again. It's been a while.
It is on Amazon Prime, but also I own the film, so it's probably not helpful. That's how I first saw it. I texted Jacob. I'm like, I bought the movie. He's like, yeah. And I saw it alongside Phantom Thread, which is another fantastic movie, by the way, that I didn't see in theaters because I'm a fucking doofus.
Hey man, it happens.
But you know what? I wanna talk about The Lighthouse next. I'm done cocktail. You know what? I wanted to talk about at least one Robert Eggers movie before his new one comes out. And I remember you saying you didn't watch The Witch yet, so or have you seen it since we last spoke about it?
I still have yet to see it.
Oh man, it's so good. But anyways, I actually did a review of The Witch. But The Lighthouse is really good too, and I really want to talk about it next week. What do you think, Jacob? You think that's a good idea?
Hell yeah. Cannot wait. Hopefully we can get Ty going.
Oh man, I'd love that. I'm sure he'll be down, but I gotta talk to him about it.
I'm excited.
Oh man, I'm excited too. We're gonna be shouting incoherently about on New Year's I had some king crab for we had it for New Year's because my dad likes to do that for New Year's. He gets king crab and I sent a picture of it to Jacob yelling "You fond of me, lobster boy" to try and get a reaction out of him, and it was good.
You fucking fond of me, lobster, ain't ya? Oh, Will Dafoe.
Oh man, I'm excited just thinking about it, man. Really, I'm gonna watch it again.
Oh boy, prepare for next week because I'm gonna quote the hell out of that movie.
Yeah, quote the movie. All right, man. I'll hold you to it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Me too. All right, I'm probably gonna message Ty after this. This is kind of a shorter episode because I'm kind of on a tight schedule right now, but I had a lot of fun talking about Soul. What do you think? I mean, it wasn't. I would say it's not one of my strongest outings, but I think we may do. I had a good time talking about Soul.
Me too. It was a fun one. Another great episode.
And I also enjoyed this Black History Month thing we managed to get done.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. There are a lot of great films out there. There are a lot of great films about the African American experience. Even if Soul isn't about the African American experience, it is still a great movie. It also has the first black protagonist, which I didn't know about till just now. So, that is cool. That sounds so bad. Yes, Soul, great film. And we're going to be talking about The Lighthouse next week. What a 180.
I know. What a total whiplash. Go from a Pixar film to a Egger movie.
To a Robert Eggers art house movie. All right. I've been Britton.
And I've been Jacob.
And we do it for the love of movies.
Yes, we do.
At least for the most part.